It's time for Lefties Losing It. Time to check in with former First Lady, the perpetually miserable Michelle Obama. Here she again reflects on her time at the White House. It was so awful having a glam team making you look your absolute best every single day. What an imposition.
Every day, every time I was up, as we called it, you know, I was up for the public, and the days were long. So, as you mentioned, to save time, you know, I know having a glam team, a trifecta, it feels like a luxury, but it was a time necessity. There's absolutely no way that I would be able to do my hair and makeup and have clothes ready that fit, you know, because rare is the woman that can live off the rack. You know.
Where is the woman who can live off the rack, Michelle? Are you serious? Try just about every woman. Is Michelle Obama so out of touch that she thinks we're all getting designer gear, custom-made clothing, perfectly tailored to our measurements? She is absolutely kidding herself. Now, get ready, folks. A new gender identity has just dropped. 150 isn't enough. We need more. Let's hear what it means to be sapphic. Here is non-binary actor Robin Holdaway and her girlfriend to explain. See if you can understand any of this.
Sapphic, much like any identity term, can mean a lot of different things to different people. Broadly speaking, it means people who are not men, but generally femme in some way, who are also attracted to people who are not men and femme in some way. The idea of this, I think, is to be a little bit broader and more encompassing than some people might feel other labels are. Personally, I think there's space in a lot of labels for this, but for example, it's to encompass people who are attracted to non-binary people who might present in different ways.
Pretty sure we already have terms for all of that, but please do go on and bore us silly with your insufferable self-importance.
Only the thing is that this is actually quite an interesting part of how sapphic operates as a term, is that this is Robin. They are AFAB, i.e. they are female at birth, and they are actually quite masc presenting in a lot of ways, which means that I often have a brief moment of just having a brain block when everyone calls us sapphic, because I'm going, what? And I briefly forget that sort of almost in a way underneath the rest there's sort of female plumbing, because it's completely irrelevant to how I perceive them.
I very regularly forget that we're in a queer relationship.
And this is part of the interesting complexity of sapphic as a term.
Insufferable, insufferable. They went on and on and on. Trust me, I had to watch it all. Just so tiresome, self-delighted, luxury beliefs for people divorced from reality. Now, here's an antidote to that craziness. Here is a lady called Kristan Hawkins who has no time for such nonsense.
What about folks who have wombs but are not women, like trans people, genderqueer folks? Why do you keep saying women when this issue affects more than women?
Because there are two genders, male and female.
There aren't. I am non-binary. I have a friend who is intersex. This issue affects more than women. It affects trans men. It affects genderqueer folks.
Women have wombs.
I am not a woman, and I have a womb.
You are a woman. And
I
you
am
do
not.
have
No.
Next question.
Now to Brian Cranston, who's now a psychiatrist as well as being a daft actor who, well, sounds a bit like a simpleton every time he speaks without the benefit of a script written by other people smarter than him.
I think he is dangerous. And quite frankly, I don't think he's that smart. I really don't. I think he's very good at a specific thing, and that is branding himself. I think he knows how to sell himself, and that's because of his narcissism, that he cannot allow himself not to be seen as a winner.
A narcissist. He sounds like a teenage girl going through his first breakup, does our Brian? But this is the guy who is, well, certainly old enough to know better and old enough to stop embarrassing himself, because I remember this, you may not, but back in 2016, he vowed to flee the United States if Donald Trump became president. The boy who cried wolf. Now, Nikki Glaser is a funny gal. She may have a weird Taylor Swift obsession, little odd for a 41-year-old woman, but she's a comic, and the only thing I want my comics to be is funny. And Nikki is funny. Her work on celebrity roasts is superb. But alas, she's gone from the highs of starring in Tom Brady's roast to cringe jokes about human trafficking and pedophilia Check out this hot mess on Saturday Night Live.
I mean, it's hard even being an aunt for me. I was staying at my sister's house recently, and at one point I was like, I'm gonna go take a shower. And my nephew comes running in. He's like, I want to take a shower with you. I want to take a shower with you. He's 18. I'm like, what's going on with his voice? Something's wrong. No. He was 4, and it was very cute. And my sister was like, he can take a shower with you. It's fine. He does it with us. And I'm like, okay, that's fine for you guys, but are you really okay with like an adult showering with your child? Like, maybe it's okay if you like come and supervise. And she was like, why? And I was like, because what if I molest him? Like, and she was like, would you? And I was like, no, I would never. That's disgusting. But that's what I'd say if I was gonna. You know, like they lie. Don't trust anyone. I don't even trust myself. I don't want to go in there. How do you become a pedophile? You don't get to choose what you're into, dude. What if it's one of those things you don't know you like till you get in there and you're like, well, this is my thing. And then it opens up a part of my brain. No.
Yep, I wish I could unsee that too, but there were signs with Nikki. I'm not sure if it's TDS or just the paranoia that self-delighted lefties suffer from, but she actually thought she may be banned from coming back to America because she bagged Donald Trump and joked about him during her recent stand-up tour. Listen to this.
I was just in Canada where you can say things on stage about someone, and they are on board. I mean, it is, dude, it's wild. There was a time on stage, I think on Saturday night, that was like, oh my God, if what I said gets recorded and sent out, like I could maybe not get let back into the country.
Now, do you think there was any pushback on that insane assertion from the Time magazine interviewer? Of course not. Nikki was allowed to explore her paranoid fantasies and make an utter dribbling fool of herself.
I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but I definitely don't think that I am immune to having some kind of backlash, or that I couldn't be put on some kind of list because of some story I reposted that was, I mean, you look at other places that have dictators. Like, you're not allowed to say bad things about them before they became a dictator or after. So I'm kind of on a list at this point.
She's so desperate to be an oppressed victim. Pathetic. Now let's have a look at a couple of brave celebrities finally taking a stand against the left's cancel culture. Here we've got 2 A-listers taking a stand against those trying to force them to apologise when they've done nothing wrong. First, it's Keira Knightley laughing off accusations about J.K. Rowling and then explaining to the triggered interviewer that people are entitled to their opinions.
I saw you're voicing Professor Umbridge in the new Harry Potter audiobooks. I was wondering, are you aware that some fans are calling for a boycott, given J.K. Rowling's ongoing campaign against trans people?
I was not aware of that, no. I'm very sorry. You know, I think we're all living in a period of time right now where we're all going to have to figure out how to live together, aren't we? And we've all got very different opinions. So I hope that we can all find respect.
She's not very sorry at all. That laughs at it all. And here is Sydney Sweeney shutting down an attempt to shame her for that American Eagle commercial.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
Joining me now is comedian Alex Stein. Alex, Sydney Sweeney handled that beautifully. Hopefully it starts a trend with Hollywood stars who get spooked by leftist media and activists to apologise when they've done nothing wrong. She just had a look of disdain on her face and moved the interview along.
No, I mean, Sydney Sweeney handled it perfectly. And, you know, there was something just kind of like almost hypnotizing about the interview, just the way that the interviewer was trying to goad Sydney into this question and how the interviewer was almost kind of nervous to ask it as if it was going to be like this gotcha moment. And I just think Sydney was just being herself. And, you know, there's other aspects of this interview Where Sydney Sweeney, to me, knows that she's hot. She knows that she's cool, and that's what a real cool person acts like. They don't act like they're super cool, and I think that's why she's so likable. And they tried to get her. They kind of try to make her political, and she handled it really well. I got to give her, her flowers. They're due for sure.
Absolutely. She just seems uninterested in the politics of it. I mean, I genuinely don't know where her politics is. I don't really care. She's an actress. I don't care how she votes or what she thinks of particular issues. And let's keep it that way. She's obviously triggered the left, but really for no reason at all. It was a jeans commercial, for the love of God. Now, another Hollywood A-lister, Jennifer Lawrence, has said this to the New York Times' Lulu Garcia-Navarro.
In the first Trump administration, you had a lot to say. I'm curious how you feel about talking out now.
I don't really know if I should. I think the first Trump administration was so wild, and just how can we let this stand? I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But as we've learned, election after election, celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for.
Alex, she went on to say that she doesn't want to alienate people from her work as an artist. It looks like she's just, reading the room. She's realising that the market for this sort of hectoring and lecturing isn't really there. It just annoys people.
No, you're exactly right. And, you were talking about this topic earlier, but, the Israel-Palestine argument in Hollywood is a very touchy situation. So, a lot of actors are now getting banned for being pro-Palestine. So really, it does not benefit an actor or actress to really even get political whatsoever. But, I have to give Jennifer Lawrence her credit, because even though these actors are great at impersonating other people and playing characters, a lot of times they're not very self-aware. They're not very humble. And it seems like she's gotten the point that it doesn't really change the temperature of the room or help her narrative by trying to be political or get her political point across. So I kind of like that she's just going to try to keep it about the art. And that's really what it should be at the end of the day. Or if you have a political viewpoint, maybe express it through that art. And you don't have to be like an open book. You don't have to be a biography. You kind of just let the art speak for itself. And I think that's what we expect from these artists and actresses and actors.
Absolutely. I don't know how my plumber votes. I don't know how the local baker votes. I don't care. I mean, this absolute desire to air your politics just because you happen to be an actor and have a profile. Yeah, I think they're working it out, but they're slow learners. Now, I played a clip of Nikki Glaser earlier. Her Saturday Night Live work was not her best. I think she is actually genuinely funny, but this monologue has copped all sorts of criticism. How do you see it, Alex? People being too harsh? It's a hard gig to stand there for 7-8 minutes and deliver a monologue.
No, and on top of that, Nikki Glaser is very funny and she is attractive, and her political viewpoints are different than mine. But I thought the Jeffrey Epstein, island Manhattan joke was actually kind of funny. I mean, I know that it didn't really, I guess it wasn't received very well. But Rita, I go to a lot of these protests, and I'm telling you, both sides want more information when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't think that topic is really off limits. And, as a comedian, you have to take chances. So even though, ideologically, I'm not probably aligned with Nikki 100% by any means, I got to give her credit for going up there and actually taking a chance, especially on NBC, because that is, a network television channel that, they are very buttoned up. So I actually do like and respect her for pushing the boundaries a little bit. So I can't really critique her too much.
And it was interesting during the credits where all the cast and the guest host all mingle and, clown around whilst the credits roll. No one really went up to her. I think there was one person talking to her. So I wonder if there was some some conflict behind the scenes. Now, before you go, Donald Trump was booed by Washington Commander fans, but no surprise to anybody. But it did not stop him from entering the commentary box and calling the game.
Your first-string quarterback has the potential, I think, to be a great quarterback. He's got to stop the injuries somehow. And let's see, we have a very important, I think this is a very important couple of plays.
Here we go. Second and 7.
Right, 2nd and 7. Let's see what happens. Whoa.
He's calling play-by-play there almost. Alex, as Greg Gutfeld says, we don't deserve him.
No, sometimes we don't. He's one of the most entertaining guys in the world. And, there's a little-known conspiracy, and this is real. A lot of people think that Donald Trump ran for president just because of his rivalry with Obama. But actually, he tried to buy the Buffalo Bills, and a lot of these powerful billionaire NFL owners tried to block him out of it. And that was actually, I think he's talked about it, one of the reasons why he definitely wanted to kind of stick it to the NFL to say, listen, forget about owning a football team. I'll own the country. So a lot of people don't know that. That's a little-known conspiracy.
Thank you for that tidbit, Alex Stein. Now, get ready to cringe. Here is a silly woman, Stephanie Miller, bowing down and kissing the feet of radical Democrat Jasmine Crockett. It's a humiliating display, but she's proud of it.
Representative, can you confirm that I just kissed your sneakers? This is true. She's on camera saying she'll do the radio. I am. We're doing it. Future senator of the great state of Texas. I'm gonna miss Ted Cruz so much. He's so likable.
Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, let's look at beyond that humiliating display and focus on the larger picture, the voting patterns of women in the recent elections. We're talking about Virginia, New Jersey and New York City. What does it tell us?
It's quite stark and quite divided, like direly divided. I was looking up historically, and up until just before Bill Clinton, it was pretty 50-50 in terms of how women voted for Democrats versus Republicans in relation to men. And then after that, sort of the steady decline, about 10 to 15 points, women always vote Democrat. And then if you double click within that, non-white women, 80% Democrat. The uneducated women, college-educated, very heavy, 60% Democrat. And single women, that's the issue. Jesse Kelly calls this the beating heart. He adds on SSRIs of the Democrat Party are these women, single women. It's 60 to 70%. That's how they're voting. And so if Republicans want to win in the near term, the men have to vote more, because that's the other thing. Women are a little bit larger part of the electorate. About 53% of women vote. They're more organized. They get themselves to the polls or mail in their ballots. And then longer term, encouraging marriage, because married women, still in the majority, 55% vote for Republicans. The whole perspective changes when you're married and have children.
Absolutely, and that's what's so stark, because I think it was the most recent presidential election. You were looking at how married men voted, unmarried men, married women. They were all majority Republican, but by small percentages Republican. And then you had the unmarried women, which were by a huge margin Democrat. Yes. And that was what really stood out. It's just fascinating to look at those patterns. But let's talk about the BBC. Things are going from bad to worse for the taxpayer-funded broadcaster. They aired that deliberately doctored footage of Donald Trump, and now he's seeking to hold the BBC responsible for what he's labelled false, defamatory, disparaging and inflammatory statements. He's given the BBC a Friday deadline, Kosha, to make things right, or he's going to launch a $1 billion lawsuit, and we're talking about $1 billion US here.
This is really something, because it is so egregious in terms of what that cut-up did and how they were basically stitching together things to suggest that he was actually calling an insurrection. And it's interesting because Trump is not shy to use litigation as one of the tools in his arsenal. He's sued in his personal capacity, civil lawsuits, various American outlets, and always the suits are above $1 billion, $2 billion. I think the CBS suit was $20 billion was the suit, even though they settled for 16. So it's sort of like a tactic for him. Do the big ask, and then you may settle where you settle. All the funding is going to the beautiful ballroom or his library, which is kind of funny. This would be the first time he would sue a foreign outlet. I don't think that has happened. The libel laws are not as protective of the press in the UK. There's a lower bar, and the burden of proof would be on them, which is different from the US. So there's a high chance that they would fear that. And they do have a precedent of having settled. They've settled all the way in the 90s with Richard Branson to some politicians recently. And this is, I think, at a gigantic scale beyond that, because they're alleging that the sitting US president incited an insurrection. That's basically what they did. So this is not going to end well for them.
No, and they aired this a week before the election, so he can argue that could have caused maximum damage. And like you said, the laws are harsher in Britain for the press, and Trump has had remarkable success with securing significant payouts from multiple media outlets in the US. I didn't know he was putting all the money towards the ballroom and the library.
Yes,
That's hilarious.
I think it's also a PR thing that he's not taking it to line his own pockets, but he's trying to divert it to something, for the people. And I think he's tracking at about 100 million so far in payouts he's received.
That's not bad. Now, the shutdown is over. Democrats did fold, but not until after the elections that we spoke about in Virginia, New Jersey and New York City. How do you see this shutdown saga? It was the longest in US history.
41 days. The second longest was in Trump's first term. I'm sure that's not a coincidence, 35 days. I see it as two things. One is performative. Yeah. All of politics is performative. Everybody's playing a part. Even this alleged civil war that's going on between the Democrats right now, and they're angry with the aide who caved, quote unquote. They all know it, and they're all deciding what role to play. That's my view. And also, it is a miss that they very conveniently decided to end it right after the election, where the Republicans got trounced. I don't think this would have made a big difference because Republicans really got trounced, and I don't think the outcome would have been any different. But maybe on the margins, it played a bit of a role because it makes the party in power look bad. The second thing is it's temporary, so it's only until the 30th of January. So in very short order, after Christmas, we're going to be back here again, and another shutdown could very well be looming. And that's why this whole discussion about whether or not to abolish the filibuster is facing growing calls. A lot of people want that. It's very controversial. It could lead to short-term gain with long-term pain. There's one view for the Republicans. The other view is you're in power now. You may not be in power for much longer. So go for maximalist strategy. And I think we're going to see that debate continue to bubble because the shutdown saga is going to be back again on the front pages February 1st.
Well, did they achieve what they wanted to? Did they get a bump going into these elections? Is it something that they will look back on and say, yep, it served a purpose and, we can expect to see it again?
I think a little bit on the margins. Just the margins were so high, though, with how the Democrats defeated the Republicans that they probably would have won that maybe by a little bit of a lesser margin. I don't see the outcome being fundamentally different. Because it does make the Republicans look bad. And the other problem is the sticking point in this whole shutdown was Obamacare and whether to have those subsidies extend. Should they extend when we know so many illegals are taking advantage of the system? And it's so crazy because that was decades ago when Obamacare was put into place, and now these subsidies are going to expire. And the average person doesn't know all this and won't pin the blame on Obama, who's been out of office for multiple terms. It will get hung around Trump's neck. So in that sense, you could say that the Democrats did succeed a little bit, but they've also paid a price, and there's a bit of a civil war in their own party.
Now, we're going to talk about the division within the conservative ranks in the US, but the Democrats have got divisions as well. And moreover, this shutdown, the 8 Democrat Senate caucus defectors who joined the Republicans to reopen the government are facing a almighty backlash, and so is Chuck Schumer kosher for not stopping them. So there are Democrats, some of the more radical ones who seem to be leading the party these days, saying this was a capitulation. We should have kept going.
Yes, and most of those are from purple moderate states to even red states where there's somehow a Democrat in power, so they're a little bit, in terms of their personal political situation, more vulnerable. But the Chuck Schumer thing is interesting because he wasn't able to whip them all into place. And on a personal level, many people are speculating that at some point sooner, if not later, AOC is going to challenge him for that Senate seat in New York. And that's just very interesting, where she is on the rise in some way with where that party is. He's ostensibly of kind of the old guard, Nancy Pelosi retired, et cetera. So that's going to be very interesting. And everybody's watching if he's going to just preemptively announce his retirement like Nancy Pelosi or risk a possible challenge from AOC.
And what an incredible job Nancy Pelosi has done to increase her own personal wealth during her time in public office. You look at what her salary was during that period and how her net wealth or net asset position has increased. It is quite remarkable. So if she can have any stock tips she wants to impart, I will be following them very religiously.
She's Warren Buffett trapped in the body of a congresswoman, that's what I say.
Absolutely. Now, before you go, there is these deep divisions forming within conservative ranks. You've got the likes of Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Matt Walsh on the one side, and then you've got Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin and others on the other. There's all sorts of calls to disavow certain people, to not platform them, a form of really cancel culture that you thought was something that the left specialised in. How do you see that? And is it just going to hold back the Republicans going into the midterms if there's all this infighting in the conservative ranks?
It's not helpful, and Republicans always were famous for having this circular firing squad, they used to say, and the Democrats, say what you will, they're very united generally, and they put on a united front, so it's certainly not helpful. But maybe it was unavoidable, and this is the party that likes to debate issues, and that leads to that. The root cause of it is the Israel issue.
Yeah,
that is, like, of course, a deep topic, but that is has been brewing for a long time. There's a sharp divide between those two camps. And then off the back of that, I think censorship and free speech and all of that hangs into that, where one side is saying that some views are so bad, we shouldn't be wasting time, we shouldn't be platforming, and we should be canceling people who do that. And the other side says, no, that's against the principle of free speech. So I think that's sort of the 1-2 punch of this issue, and it's going to be very interesting. The last thing I will say on that is that the side against Israel, or at least not against, but kind of neutral and feels like the U.S. has done enough, is ascendant, because everybody under the age of 30 is on that side. I would say the Tucker, Matt Walsh side of the camp. And so that is the side growing, and the side that favors Israel is literally dying out of the electorate. They're the elderly people, 70 plus. So this is not going to end.
That is in itself a topic we've discussed previously, because some of the polling that's come out, and I don't know if that polling will change now that the war is over, but certainly there were dramatic shifts in the public opinion towards Israel across the board. And with younger people, the shifts were enormous, from memory, 40, 50 points. So
right, in such a short period of time.
In a few years. So that is certainly something I think would be concerning a lot of people. But yeah, we'll keep watching that debate. Kosha Gator, thank you so much for your time tonight.